much money are you actually sending to Turkey for this? Because I'll tell you why it matters, because people want value for money. They want to see a return on investment. For people voting in the general election next year, they want to see some movement on stopping the boats.
No, I completely understand that view, and people want us to treat their taxpayers' money with great care. But what we are doing is spending some money on this issue. I'm not able to say how much this morning.
You'll be aware, of course, the Prime Minister signed a £500 million deal over a number of years with the French Border Force earlier this year. And then you see pictures such as this in today's Daily Mail, taken in Boulogne, where I would imagine it's a dad with his two kiddies in a sailboat, and there are 15, 20 people boarding one of those big ribs getting ready to sail from Boulogne, one assumes, to the Kent coast. No sign of French police or border force equivalent. What are we getting? Where's the bang for the buck in the millions of pounds we're spending?
Well, a significant proportion of the boats are intercepted by the French police and gendarmerie. It's around 50%. It varies.
Do you agree with what Lee Anderson says? Should illegal migrants F off back to France?
Well, look, we all choose our own language, but what Lee was expressing was the deep frustration of the British public, not just at the numbers of people crossing the Channel, but the apparent refusal of some people to accept perfectly decent accommodation on this barge. You've got to remember that this is a form of accommodation that's being used in Belgium, in the Netherlands, has been used by British oil and gas workers. And so, you know, if it's good enough for them, it should be good enough for the migrants.
Is it acceptable to you, Robert, that these migrants on this barge are being offered free trips, day trips to Weymouth and local sightseeing spots? They're being offered free trips to the cricket, complimentary tickets to local music festivals. Is that acceptable? Because I thought the government was trying to offer these people who come to our country illegally some sort of deterrent. All of that, plus a nice barge with lovely sea views and a nice part of Dorset, it doesn't seem like a deterrent. It seems more like an enticement.
Well, we haven't done that. That's the local authority.
No, I realise that. But
yeah,
what do you think about that? What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's a matter for them. What we're providing, as you say, is basic but decent accommodation that is no more or less than our legal obligations.
The barge is a drop in the ocean in terms of the number of places that are required to accommodate asylum seekers. We've got 50,000 in hotels at the moment, so it's almost become a bit of a distraction, hasn't it? Because it doesn't really plug the gaps that are needed in the system.
Well, I disagree with that.
Minister, if I'm an Albanian and I've declined to go on board the Bibby Stockholm and all housing, accommodation or support is withdrawn, I'll just go into what's known as the black economy, won't I?
Well, we will stay in touch with those individuals. They'll have reporting events where they have to come and meet us, or Home Office personnel. And so it's not a question of them disappearing. Individuals don't have to accept this form of accommodation. In fact, a significant proportion of asylum seekers don't. They go and stay with family and friends elsewhere and save the taxpayer the money. But the fundamental point is one of fairness. We provide decent accommodation. If you don't want to accept it, that's a matter for you.
Do you concur with your party's deputy chairman that we could tell such individuals to F off back to France?
Well, I think everybody chooses their own language, but the point that Lee Anderson was making is a fair one, which I agree with. I think it's
Would
disappointing.
you have used that language, Minister?
Well, I think you all choose your own language, but the point he's making is absolutely right, which is that if somebody is destitute, then they would accept this perfectly decent form of accommodation. And we shouldn't have a sort of a la carte menu where you can decide which form of accommodation suits you, or you can demand to be put up in a four-star hotel.
You say Lee Anderson speaking for the British people. He also said last night that the government's small boat policy is a failure.
Well, many people are frustrated by the number of people crossing. This is an immensely complex challenge that doesn't just face this country, but
has the government failed in that challenge?
I don't agree with that. It is a challenging situation, but you can see from the work that we've done, particularly since Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister, I became Immigration Minister 9 months ago, the deals we struck with France, that have led to more interceptions on the beaches. The work we've done with Albania that's seen a 90% reduction in the number of Albanians crossing the Channel. The increase in raids on illegal working, like care homes and car washes and nail bars that are employing illegal migrants.
I think the problem is that you've allowed this problem to run away from you, and over the years you haven't really put anything in place to deal with it. Do you have a specific?
That's correct,
do you have a
actually.
specific? Well, you cite those examples of France and Albania, but that's only been in the last 12 to 24 months. Do you have any specific target in mind of when you're going to bring down that asylum application backlog and what you'd like to bring it down to?
Yes, we've made a very clear promise in December last year to eliminate the legacy backlog of cases by the end of this year. And as I just said, I'm confident that we're going to achieve that.
Hotels are full of migrants. I believe there are 6 seafront hotels in Skegness. We've been talking about the one Strady Park Hotel in Llanelli, where there's a spirited campaign to stop migrants going there. We've been talking to the leader of the campaigners down in Portland in Dorset and the North Eye prison development in Sussex. All of them, to a man and woman, say, listen, the main thing, or one of the things we're seriously annoyed about is we were never consulted. No one ever asked us what we thought about this. These migrants were just foisted upon them. You know, is that acceptable that the government didn't consult any of these communities?
Well, we don't want to be using hotels at all. These are symptoms of the problem. There is no good way of handling this, no ideal way of housing people. As I say, we're moving to a much simpler form of accommodation, which is absolutely the right thing to do.
The Rwanda policy matters, but remind us how many people have been sent back to Rwanda so far?
Well, we're waiting for the outcome of the Supreme Court. You know, you can't doubt the government's commitment to this. We've signed that partnership. It's a very important one.
It's now been revealed that the cost of painting over cartoon murals that were meant to welcome children at the Manston detention camp cost £1,500 of taxpayers' money. Can you justify that sum?
Well, as I said at the time, we thought it was right to change the signage at locations where people first arrive in the United Kingdom. So that they are more appropriate, because if you break into the country illegally, that's a serious offence. There should be proper signage there. There should be proper signage that emphasises the seriousness of the situation. In that immediate setting where people are being questioned and debriefed.
was the question I asked. Is it worth? Is that money well spent, Minister?
Well, I wasn't responsible for the cost of that, but
you were responsible for the decision.
I think the change was the right one, and I fundamentally believe that you don't judge the compassion of our system by the decoration
but it's value
of a
for money to spend
in which people first arrive
to paint over Mickey Mouse.
This is a challenge that's costing the United Kingdom billions of pounds.
Spend another £1,500 on Mickey Mouse.
We need.
Can I also ask you about Nadine Dorries this morning? The Labour Party, Yvette Cooper, has renewed her calls for a by-election to be held there. She hasn't spoken in the Commons since July 2022, last voted April 2023. She's leaving her constituents in limbo. Isn't it time for her to go?
Yes. I think being a Member of Parliament is a special privilege. You sign up for a term in office. If you decide you want to leave Parliament for whatever reason, you need to get on and do that. I don't think Nadine Dorries' constituents are being properly represented. I hope she'll reach that conclusion soon.
What about Chris Bryant's plan to get the government to force her out if she doesn't attend Parliament for 6 months for the sake of her constituents? Would you support that?
I'm not familiar with the details of his proposal. I know he's relying on quite an arcane piece of legislation. Obviously, the government will consider that, but it's probably a matter for the House of Commons rather than for the government. And so if he brings forward serious proposals, then as individual members of Parliament, we'll have to consider that. But the basic principle...
Is she an embarrassment to the Conservative Party now?
Well, I'm not going to get into a particular criticism of Nadine.
Well, she's not doing her job, is she?
But my view as a Member of Parliament is it's a real privilege to serve in Parliament. You sign up to a term in office. It's only in the most sparing circumstances when you should leave before you've